So I think you guys have in elementary school at some point, you study ecology, I imagine. So raise your hand if you in elementary school learned about food webs and food chains. Okay. Raise your hand if you learned about biomes, like rainforest, desert, okay. So those ideas, how about predator and prey? All right, so you guys, those are all concepts that are part of the study of ecology. And ecology is a science in which you study both living things and their non-living environment as well. When I was in college and in grad school, that was my focus was on ecology as a science, studying of the interacting ecosystems. For example, when I was in college, I had to take courses in about fish, about plants, about birds, living things. But also I took classes about soil science. I took classes about wetlands. I took classes about meteorology, weather. So I was studying both those non-living things along with the living things. That's what ecology is, trying to put those things together. If we were just studying living things, that would be biology. But ecology includes those non-living parts as well. So our definition we use for an ecosystem is it's an area in which you have living things interacting with each other. Some ecosystems can be really big. Think about an ocean ecosystem, desert ecosystem. But you could also think about ecosystems as something relatively small. Bless me. Is this aquarium an ecosystem? Yeah. Yeah. There's living organisms, there's plants, there's fish, there's snails. There's also non-living organisms. There's the water. There's oxygen dissolved in the water. There's the rocks and so forth. So that's a small contained ecosystem. Have you ever seen those little glass balls that have like a little plant and a snail in them? No. So they're all like enclosed. You can't open them up or anything, but the things inside are self-sustaining. That's a tiny little ecosystem in those little glass enclosures. Sort of. We generally think about sort of ecosystems as natural, not built ecosystems. You know?
I saw like a video on Instagram the other day where it was like a little aquarium and it looked like a mini version of the jungle.
Oh yeah, terraries are really cool. Like you can build them and seal them, and if you have the right balance of plants and animals and soil and so forth and moisture, they can live and grow because materials are recycled in an ecosystem. They're really neat. I saw once a video of this guy had this huge one, and he had it for like, I don't know, 50 or 60 years and had never opened it, never added anything to it, and it had been growing and subsisting for all that time. Well,
What was the last word for ecology?
the study of living things in their environment. Yes. All right. So small things can be considered an ecosystem as well. A rotten log, a puddle, that's a tiny little ecosystem. And when we are studying ecology, we often will look at two categories of factors about the ecosystem. The biotic factors and the abiotic factors. Can you guess what biotic means? Bio. Yeah, they're living parts of the ecosystem. And then you could probably guess abiotic is non-living things. So biotic factors would include lots of things. You know, plants, animals, fungi, bacteria, all sorts of living things. And then the abiotic factors would include things like the soil, the water, the temperature, the amount of light. Those are abiotic factors. They're very important, but they're non-living things. And so ecology, you study both of those parts, the biotic and the abiotic factors. So let's look at an example here. I have the ecosystem you see on the next slide. What's a biotic factor? Raise your hand and tell me. Give me a biotic factor you can actually see here in this diagram. Maya? Turtles. Wyatt? Deer. Devin? Ladybugs. Layla?
Fishy boy.
Okay. You guys are all giving me one group of things, though. Give me something that's a different. Sage? What? The trees. The lily pads. Can you give me something we can't see there, but you know is probably there? Bacteria, fungi, protists, things like that as well. How about abiotic factors? Go ahead and pull some of these. I don't have them on here. Oh, yeah, good. Abiotic. You can put in whatever you want, as long as you understand. Give me an abiotic factor. Maya? The water. What? The log? Why the log? It's no longer living. The air. Anything else? Water. How about soil? How about sunlight? They're not living things, but they're very important for the functioning of this ecosystem. So if we are imagining this ecosystem, we might want to focus our attention on one specific type of living organism. We call a specific group of living organisms a population. A population has to be a single species. So if I say mammals, am I referring to a population?
No.
What if I say white-tailed deer?
Yeah.
What if I say trees?
No.
What if I say blue spruce trees? So it has to be a specific species to be a population. And one important measure of an ecosystem that ecologists will often study is the biodiversity of an ecosystem. What do you think that means? Why? Not quite the difference. Like different types. So what is an ecosystem you are familiar with that has a very high biodiversity? The tropical rainforest has a huge biodiversity, has many species of plants and animals and bacteria and fungi. Other ecosystems, if you imagine a desert, has quite a bit less biodiversity. There's fewer types of living things, fewer types of species in the desert than there is in the tropical rainforest. And the biodiversity of an ecosystem also tells us about its stability and about its health. A more diverse ecosystem is a more stable ecosystem. A disturbance might not affect it as much as an ecosystem that we know about. When we're studying populations of organisms, we'll often consider the niche of a species. A niche is a little bit of a hard term to define. It's kind of like, sometimes I think it's its job in the ecosystem, its role. And it includes lots of different factors. For example, part of its niche is about when it eats, what it eats, when it's active, where it nests. All those sort of details about the species are its niche. habitat of an organism is its sort of location, where it lives. So if we imagine an ecosystem, let's imagine our Perry Junior High courtyard ecosystem. Do you think it has a high biodiversity? No. Not really. There's, 5 or 6 species of trees, a bunch of small plants, some probably squirrels and some robins and birds and mice, and there's some things out there. All right, let's imagine, for example, squirrels. Let's say there's a population of squirrels living in our courtyard ecosystem. And let's imagine that there's one oak tree out there providing acorns for those squirrels. That's what they're living on. Could there also be mice out there? Snakes? Yeah. How about some robins, some bluebirds? Yeah, all those things could be there. So several types of species will share the same habitat. Do you think there would be another a species of chipmunk that also eats acorns from that oak tree? What if there were? How come, Dave? Yeah, so we have a word for that. You know what we call that? Two species trying to get the same limited resource. I mean, yeah, that is related. There's a term, it's called competition. If you have multiple species that share the same habitat and the same niche, they're going to compete with each other. Right? A deer and a heron. You know what a heron is?
Yeah.
Big bird. Not big bird, state big bird. So a heron and a deer can live on a lake forest ecosystem. They can coexist. Why can they coexist together in that ecosystem and both be successful? Yeah, they have different niches. They might live in the same area. They might be active at the same time, but the deer browse on vegetation, whereas the heron eat fish out of the lake. So they're not competing with each other for food. What's going on in this picture? And these aren't my sister's pieces on here. Yeah, so these are cedars. These are my sister's house. She's got a parents' house. But all those cedar bushes, every year the deer would browse. So why is there a line? Right, that's as high as the deer can reach. Thanks, they saw me. I'll be sure to tell my sister. I think our house is ugly. Okay, no, I'll tell them it's ugly, yeah. All right. So, ecosystems on Earth all require energy. And what's the source of that energy? Sunlight. Sun is the source of all energy on Earth. Right? And as you know, all living things need that energy. But only one group of living things can actually use the sun's energy directly. What group am I referring to?
Producers.
Which means what? Mostly plants.
Autotroph.
Autotrophs, good. So producers, or autotrophs, they can take energy from the sun and do what with it? Yeah. Through what process? Make glucose. Through photosynthesis. We call those things producers. So examples are plants, of course, but also some other things, algae and some bacteria and some protists. So then, are we autotrophs?
No.
No. What are we? Heterotrophs, also known as consumers. So we can't get energy. Do we get energy from the sun?
Yeah.
You're yes or no?
No.
Yes, we do.
All right. Who cares to explain? Because you both all said both. Can't even explain.
Well, don't you get some kind of vitamin?
Are you asking me?
Well, is it like vitamin D or something?
Okay.
But also, well, I guess it's not direct corn has to grow from the sun.
Okay, so yeah, the answer is yes, we do get energy from the sun, but indirectly. We need some steps between the sun and how we get energy. So like Taylor just said, corn. Yeah, we eat corn, we get energy from it. We're getting glucose from the corn, which got its glucose through photosynthesis. It used the sun. And basically any food you eat can, the energy in that can be traced back to the sun. Now, it might take a couple steps to do that. So let's say for lunch, so raise your hand, tell me, give me something you ate for lunch today. Chicken. So you had some chicken today. So you ate the chicken to get energy. Where did that chicken get its energy? No, grass. From eating, not chickens don't eat grass. They eat grain, like corn. And the corn got its energy from the sun. So you have to go back a couple of steps. Why? You ate what? An orange. So an orange comes from a tree, and the tree got its energy from the sun. Is there any food that you eat that did not get energy from the sun?
Ice cream sandwich.
Okay, so ice cream sandwich. So the ice cream came from what? From dairy products, which were produced by a cow, which probably ate maybe grass, maybe green, which grew from the sun. So you can, a cracker is made of what? Flour, grain, yes, which is a plant, which grew using the sun's energy. So we can do this forever. All foods can be traced back to the sun's energy. Yes. What's in a popsicle? Water, sugar. What is sugar? Comes from sugarcane plant, which.
I had yogurt, but I didn't eat it.
What
All right.
about popsicles?
Everything. So consumers then are those organisms that have to consume other organisms, sometimes plants, sometimes animals, to get their energy. Squid eat little bits of stuff out of the ocean. Okay, we take little bits of plants. So consumers are heterotrophs. They eat other organisms in order to get the energy that they need. And then, is this another example?
Yeah, could you trace that gum?
Yeah, because gum is,
Sugar-free gum?
yes, because the gum part comes from plant material, which.
Sometimes there's solar energy. Rubber.
All right, decomposers. What is a decomposer? Layla?
It's an organism that breaks down other than organisms to get their energy.
Yeah, it's an organism that lives by breaking down organic matter, we call this stuff. Dead organisms, waste products. And most decomposers are fungi and bacteria. They are the organisms that can take dead organic matter, digest it, and then they use some of the energy, but they also recycle the nutrients that were stored in that organism to the soil, to the ecosystem. Okay. All right, so often when an ecologist is studying an ecosystem, they will make diagrams called food chains and food webs. So could you explain what a food chain is? Well,
I thought you
No.
said will as in like stop talking.
no, I want to get it right.
Okay. So it's like when a producer is eaten by a consumer and then is by another consumer.
Okay. And a food chain diagram is how we illustrate that. It's a model of how things are consuming each other in an ecosystem. It shows energy being transferred from one organism to another. It shows also predator-prey relationships. So if I were to put some words, some species names into these boxes, raise your hand if you could tell me, where should I put the producer? Here or here? Which side? Raise your hand. Tell me why. Olympia? Yes. Sort of. But everything goes to the fungi, the decomposers. Plants, animals, things in the middle. They all sort of funnel down to the decomposer. So in a way, it is. All right, so where should I put plants? Raise your hand. Left side or right side or in the middle? Why left? And
It's prey.
on the right?
I agree with the right answer.
Hey.
Everyone needs a sign. Olivia? Okay. And
And it doesn't eat anything.
it doesn't eat anything. So, yes, the producer is the one that has no arrow pointing to it because they're not taking in any other organism. The arrows in a food chain and food web point from what was eaten to what ate it. So the wheat didn't eat anything. It used the sun, but we typically don't put sun in a food web because it's not a living thing. So we have wheat, which is being eaten by a mouse, which is being eaten by a snake, which is being eaten by a needle. That's a simple food chain.
What about the grass?
That's just just another example. So what would I call the wheat? The producer. What would I call the mouse and the snake and the eagle? Those are consumers. We also sometimes talk about where in the food chain a consumer is. We talk about what's called their trophic level.
0.
Where do you think the first trophic level of consumers is? The first level of consumer? What? The mouse. The second level consumer? Yes. Sometimes the first level is called a primary consumer. What would I call this diagram? What would I call the snake? Raise your hand. Danielle?
Primary.
The snake in this one.
Primary. The cryberry. I just said it right.
Just give me a number, Danielle, is what I was asking for.
2.
No?
It says second.
No?
No,
Third
on the
level.
bottom one.
First level, second level consumer, third level consumer. Primary, secondary, tertiary, quaternary.
Wait, go back. I want to see the I don't get it. Is that what I'm saying?
All right, so let's do one more slide here.
That's so nice that you feeding the squirrels. Oh, I'm not feeding the
Is
squirrels.
she really feeding the hogs?
Yes.
Yeah, really she is. There's a level in between.
She's fattening up the squirrel.
What level consumer is the hog?
Second.
The second level consumer. The squirrel is the first level consumer. All right, we have some other words for first level consumer. I am a first level consumer. Probably most of you are not.
Oh, you're vegetarian.
Yes. So herbivores are plant eaters. I'm an herbivore.
Then go to the AKA.
Apple.
Yeah, but-
No,
I'm not naturally a vegetarian.
I'm not a vegan. I am an ovo-lacto vegetarian. That means I eat eggs and dairy. Ovo-lacto vegetarian. So I'm not a vegan.
Why? But vegan.
How do you know you've never eaten
Okay, what?
How do you know you
All right, guys. Shh. They're light vegetarian? They're pescatarian?
Some people do that. I think they're fish meat, like.
I do too. I don't eat it. I don't eat anything with a pop.
Fish is gross.
Okay, anyways, what is a what is the definition of a carnivore? Carnivore.
Animal eater.
Jack?
Meat eater?
Yeah, these are things that eat only meat. Probably most of you are, no, omnivores, because omnivores
Eat both plants and meat.
eat both plant matter and animal matter. What's a predator?
Oh, I know what a predator is.
What is a predator, Danielle?
Predator.
You're not going to make up words in it, right?
Thinking about.
Go ahead.
Predator
Yes.
is a thing of a bob.
You didn't raise your hand and say you knew what a predator was. did you?
Well, I know what it is.
But you're just trying to phrase it.
Yes, I'm trying to.
Olivia, what is a predator?
Predator is someone that like eats
Someone?
something that like eats something.
Technically, the alternative.
A predator is something that eats something.
It is, yes, it is a hunter. And what is the prey?
Hunted.
A hunted.
I know what an apex predator is.
What is an ape? Do you really, Danielle?
Yes.
All right, Danielle,
Think of a bob.
Danielle, using words from the English language, can you please explain what a apex predator is?
An apex predator is a predator that eats blood.
I know.
Good job.
In
Nice.
apex predators, the top of all the predators.
Yeah, it's the top level.
Like
Top
the
part of
I know
it.
what that
Hold on, let me finish this, then I'll answer your question, Mitchell. What is a heterotroph? Olivia? An organism. Let's be careful we don't say animal, because fungi are heterotrophs. Bacteria can be heterotrophs, so it's an organism that doesn't make its own food, it has to eat other things. And autotrophs are things that can make their own food. They can go through the process of photosynthesis, using the sun to obtain energy. What was your question, Mitchell?
So you said you don't eat anything with a father. Don't plants technically have fathers?
Yeah, I don't know. I should have never taught you guys about pollen. Like, so now you're calling me out on my definition of vegetarian. Yeah, technically they do. Good point.